can hand back to the Chair.
And we'll go to Senator Steele-John.
Thanks, Chair. I'll take you to some of the answers you gave on notice to questions asked ahead of time by the Chair, if I could. You've said in your answer to the third question on notice from the Chair that participants will not be required to pay gap fees under this bill. Can I check that in the legislation, as it currently stands, participants are not able to pay gap fees for the supports they're getting funded for?
Senator, sorry, did you say under the current legislation?
No, I can say it again for you.
Apologies.
So what I want to do is I want to check that in the legislation as it currently stands, so I think we're talking about the legislation as, yes, the Act as it is currently written. Participants are not able to pay gap fees for the supports that they are getting funded for. That's currently the case, isn't it? You can't pay a gap fee.
Senator Matthew Swainson from National Disability Insurance Agency. I think you're asking a question about the current Act which is in place, which is the agency applies in its planning.
Yes.
I would say there's nothing in the Act which would prevent a participant from choosing to do two things. One, to use their plan flexibly to acquire the supports that they require. Secondly, there's nothing in the Act as it stands at the moment that would prevent a participant, if they choose, to supplement what is in their plan for additional supports over and above what's funded in the plan. So that's the arrangements in place currently. Just ask Mr Maitland if he wants to add anything to that.
Thank you. Andrew Maitland, General Manager, NDIA. That's correct. If a participant wants to have a high level of support that's beyond what we have deemed as reasonable and necessary, they can certainly supplement that themselves. There's nothing in the Act that prevents that today.
Nothing in the Act that prevents that today?
Correct.
That's your evidence?
Yes.
And in the bill that we are considering as a committee, will participants be able to choose to pay gap fees if their funding for a support doesn't cover the cost of that support?
So where NDIS funding may be less than the actual cost of a support as a result of the support determination, participants can use the flexibility within their plans and manage their supports in a way that ensures no out-of-pocket expenses are incurred.
Sorry, you'll need to say that again. Could you repeat that again for us?
Where NDIS funding may be less than the actual cost of the support as a result of a support determination, participants can use the flexibility within their plans and manage their supports in a way that ensures no out-of-pocket costs are incurred.
Okay. So that lines up with what you've given in your written response to the Chair. You've said that the proposed legislative instruments do not require participants to pay a gap fee. A gap fee is the difference between the cost of a single service and what the government or an insurer will pay. There is no choice but to pay a gap fee under these arrangements. Conversely, under the NDIS, participants receive a package of supports and retain choice and control over how they spend their allocated package. For example, they can choose to use NDIS funding to access the support at a lower ratio, frequency or intensity than previously funded. So that's the answer that you've given to the Chair on notice. My concern is that you've said that participants are not required to pay gap fees, but haven't ruled out the possibility of participants being able to choose to pay gap fees if they wouldn't otherwise be able to access that support. You can't rule that out, can you?
That was the response that I provided, Senator.
Yeah. So if I am a disabled person that is currently being funded for 7 hours of support a day, and that level of support is what is necessary for me to keep my job. Right? Without that, That's the amount of work hours that I have in my roster. If I don't have that, I lose my job. And under this bill, the Minister determines a level of support, a number of hours that is less for me than that 7-hour period that I need. You say, oh, well, Jordon, you can only have supports for 5 hours. You're saying to me that it is then my freedom to choose whether I accept that 5 hours, which will cause me to lose my job, or somehow find the money to fund the 2-hour difference.
Senator, employment supports won't be impacted by the support determination. As we were outlining a little earlier in our evidence, that's not in scope for that support determination.
It's not in scope of the support determination. That was your evidence, was it? So you are saying that cutting somebody's social and community participation funding will not impact their employment?
That's correct, Senator.
Mr. Swain, who is the agency? You are the agency representative. It is still the policy of the agency to encourage people to spend their plans flexibly.
That's correct, Senator.
It is, isn't it?
That's
yeah.
correct, Senator.
And so people often draw from their social and community participation for activities such as employment, don't they?
That's correct.
Correct,
Senator.
Yes, they do. So by cutting that social and community participation support by 50%, that impacts their employment, doesn't it?
Senator, that's correct, but the converse is also correct. So if there's an item of support in their plan which they wish to acquire or use and they don't have sufficient funding for that type of support, they can use their plan flexibly and from other parts of the plan to fund that support. So,
But what if they're short? What if there isn't the flexibility for the extra 2
Yeah.
hours?
Yeah.
Senator, can I clarify Ms Rule's evidence? The government's intention is that the 50% SCCP reduction not apply to the portion of SCCP on employment supports.
But what, I'm really sorry, but in the name of all that is holy, what do you mean? Because your colleague has just said funds are used flexibly. All right? So if you cut from one bucket, it means they cannot use it for another. It cannot flow across. So what do you mean that it is the government's intention that it doesn't affect employment?
Senator, may I clarify?
Please do.
When we can calculate today your SCCP support, there are line items underneath which include for employment supports. So that will be to support someone with the necessary supports for them to be in employment, and that includes, on occasions, having a support worker potentially there to support them in the employment. What is being looked at in the legislation, I don't wish to speak for the department, is that that component of SCCP is not intended to be reduced, and I'll let them clarify that. But it is in the SCCP today, and we're not reducing that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Maitland. You're talking about circumstances in which social and community participation is broken down into somebody's plan by those elements of employment, etc. Now, that only occurs in situations where a participant is funded, say, for a support worker because they are part of a Australian Disability Enterprise or other structures such as that. It doesn't account for when people, again, at the agency's encouragement, have used other items within their social and community participation budget to flexibly use their funds to then cover their employment supports. I'm sorry, but this is such a common practice. This is how disabled people have made ends meet at a time when plans have been often seeing year-on-year reductions, and agency officials who I have been interacting with have assured me in certain constituency cases that I shouldn't panic on behalf of my constituent about somebody's support levels in relation to their work, because they can take it flexibly from other parts, other items, and have it flow through. It's not there to flow if it's cut in half. So you can't ring fence it, can you?
Senator, may I just try to, because I really would like to help here, because we understand the importance of keeping participants in the employment market and supporting that, and we're very, very sincere about that. Today, when we look at it, we might suggest that someone needs, and I'll use an example, 3 hours a day, and 5 days a week, it's 15 hours, that when we calculate it through our planning process, we would then put in 15 hours of support in our calculation tools for employment supports. And so what we are saying is that 15 hours, which we've worked through with the participant in the planning process when we do it, will not be cut in the future. Now, if you're suggesting that they're also using funds flexibly to go above what we've recorded as employment supports, then I understand your question, but it's...
Yes, I am, but also there's this wild thing called disabled people applying for jobs, right? So disabled people moving from one job to another, as I would hope the government would want them to, right, to progress in their career. And we have heard, and quite frankly, you should know, all of you, that many disabled people require support when they leave their homes, from the moment they leave their home to the moment they return. And the fact that they receive that support, need that support, in no way undermines their dignity or basic humanity, right? So you can't go out and apply for a job, get to the interview, to then get the job with the funding in that part of your social and community participation plan, because you don't have the job at the time you apply. You do the application process and supports with the other elements of the community participation funding. Correct?
So, Senator, what I would say is that you're quite correct in saying in the capacity building in daily activities line, we will build on capacity to get a job and work with employment and all those things. So
Mr.
that's
Maitland,
correct.
I'm sorry. That's about building your capacity
Correct.
to
And
enter
go and get
the
a job.
workforce.
And
It's not about the journey from the door to the interview. That's not capacity building.
No.
That's social and community participation.
Correct, Senator. If they then obtain employment and they need employment supports as part of their CCP, we would then encourage them to come back to us, and that is a change of circumstance that would be reassessed, and we will put supports in the plan to enable them to have that employment. So yes, they will need to come back.
How are they meant to get to the interview? How are they meant to get to the interview, folks?
Sorry?
How are they meant to get to the interview?
With their transport supports, or is that where you're going?
No, the transport support covers the maxi taxi, right? Doesn't cover the support worker to help you in and out the taxi and then into the building where you do the interview.
Yes, Senator.
Yes? Yeah. So that is covered by the non-employment parts of social and community participation, because you don't have the job yet and you've already obtained the capacity to apply for the job. Correct?
Correct, Senator.
Yeah, and that is the part that will be cut. Correct? Because it is not the ring-fenced employment line
I understand
item.
what you're saying, Senator. What I would say is, if there are supports that are needed to get you to that location, if there are things that need to be done, we do that during the planning process with the participant.
But you don't know what jobs you're going to apply for when you go through the planning process, man. Like, come on, this is human life. You all live it. You all live this flexibility, this fluidity. It doesn't exist in little boxes. But come on, I've known a lot of you for a while now. You're clever people. This is not rocket science. This is the basic of getting a job, which my God, we can all get politically on board with the idea that disabled employment should rise, right? So, again, the funding that would support you to get from your door to your job interviews, not the funding once you have your job and not to build the capacity to go for the interview. That funding, that will be subject to the cut, correct?
Senator, just if there is funding in the plan for the transport, that you have transport funding.
Not the car, Mr. Maitland, not the car, the support worker. I'm very aware of the transport funding.
Yes.
Yes, it will be cut, correct?
There would be a cut to your SCCP, correct?
All right. Thank you.
That's not to zero, and it doesn't mean the funds that you can use.
It's 50%, and it's 50%. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's 50% because that's what the current government intends. Your legislation allows it to go to 99% of its current value, correct? The Minister can cut social and community participation to 99% of its current value.
That's not what the government has announced.
It's not what they've announced, Ms. Rule. I understand it's not what they've announced, but the legislation enables a reduction in support of 99.99%. Correct?
The reduction needs to be it would need to be for financial sustainability reasons.
Yes, can go as low as 99.9%.
The provision says a percentage lower than 100%.
Which is 99.99%.
That's one number below.
It is, yes. Okay. At this point, folks, I've got to catch a plane. I'd love to stay and do this for 100 million years. But I suspect you've heard pretty succinctly from my colleagues that there are a number of problems with this legislation that come from the human reality and complexity of disabled life, interacting with what the government and its bureaucratic frameworks are usually able to handle. I understand you've done your best, but this does not cut the mustard. You've got to go back and fix some of this stuff before myself or my party can have a bar of anything that is being proposed here. Thank you for your time. I will see you again soon. Thank you, Chair.
Senator, may I just correct one thing I said so that it's...
Please do, Mr Maitland.
I just want to be very clear. Finding and keeping a job, including going to the place of employment, is actually funded out of the capacity building daily allowance. That's where we fund taking someone to the process where they end up with the job. Once they have a job, it is in the SCCP.
You've got to go back and check that, Mr Maitland, because I think you'll find that enabling somebody to build the capacity to apply and finding a job in terms of looking on the interview, being connected with a provider, those kind of things, that is funded under capacity building. But in terms of the journey to the employment space, to do the interview, that's social and community participation.
So
correct?
Mr Maitland, no. Take it on notice. That's to be really crystal clear.
If it is capacity building, then my lord, then the advice we've been given from the agency over a very long period of time has not been aligned with what you've been doing. And again, we were talking about a 10% cut rather than a 50% cut, so we're not off the bloody hook there either. But
Senator
my understanding
Steele-John,
is...
I'll just ask you to maintain some respect.
Yeah.
It is late. Everyone's had a big week.
Yeah, no, fair enough, Jen. Fair enough. But if you could take that on notice, let's get some specificity, and then we'll come back and do this again at some point. Thank you.
Authorised by J. Steele-John, Australian Greens, Canberra.